The tension in Soldier Field was thick enough to cut with a knife, and every Bears fan watching could feel it. What's up, Bears Nation? Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your number one source for all the latest breaking news, insider updates, and the hottest rumors surrounding our beloved Chicago Bears. I'm here to bring you everything you need to know about what's happening with our team, and trust me, today's update is one you absolutely cannot miss. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because things are heating up in Chicago, and you're going to want to stay ahead of every single development as we navigate what could be a franchise-altering offseason. Now, I need you to stick with me through this entire video because what I'm about to break down has massive implications for the future of this organization. We're talking about potential moves that could reshape our offense, alter our salary cap situation, and fundamentally change the direction we're heading as we continue building around our young core. This isn't just speculation for the sake of drama. This is real analysis based on what we've been seeing on the field, what's been said in press conferences, and what the numbers are telling us about where this team might be headed. Let me paint you a picture of what went down in Week 14 against the Packers, because that game revealed some cracks that have been forming beneath the surface for weeks now. We lost 28-21, which was painful enough on its own, but what happened in those final seconds told a story that goes way deeper than just another loss to Green Bay. Picture this: 4th and 1, red zone, game on the line, and Caleb Williams drops back looking for the game-tying touchdown. Instead, he throws an interception into the end zone, and the camera pans to the sideline where we see one of our star players helmet off, absolute frustration written all over his face. That image became the talking point of the week, and for good reason. The visible frustration wasn't just about one play. It was the culmination of something that's been brewing throughout this season, something that many of us in Bears Nation have noticed, but maybe haven't wanted to fully acknowledge. When you look at the stat sheet from that Packers game, you see a number that jumps off the page. 1 reception for -4 yards, 1 catch. For a player of this caliber, for someone who's supposed to be a centerpiece of our offense, that's not just a bad game, that's a red flag waving in the wind. Head coach Ben Johnson addressed the situation in his Monday press conference, and his comments were revealing in ways that go beyond just breaking down one play. When asked about that final 4th down attempt and whether the frustrated receiver was open, Johnson was pretty direct. He said he didn't see him as being the answer on that particular play, noting that the receiver came open more after the ball had already left Caleb's hand. But here's where it gets interesting. Johnson also mentioned that going into that game, they thought they might have more designed touches for this player than anyone else in the offense. They had a plan to feature him heavily, especially with Rome Odunze sidelined with an injury, yet somehow it didn't materialize. Think about that for a second. Your WR1 is supposed to be the focal point of the game plan. You're missing another key receiver, and yet he ends up with essentially no production. That's not just bad execution, that's a fundamental disconnect between what the coaching staff wants to do and what's actually happening on the field. And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture of this season, this isn't an isolated incident. We're looking at a player who's tracking toward career lows in both receptions and receiving yards, and that's happening in a year where we desperately need offensive firepower. Now, here's where things get really interesting, and this is the part where I need your full attention, because we're about to discuss something that could send shockwaves through the entire organization. When you start connecting the dots between the on-field frustration, the declining production, the philosophical approach that Ben Johnson brings to this offense, and the financial realities of the NFL, you start to see a picture forming. Johnson's system is built around 12 personnel sets, meaning 2 tight ends on the field, and a heavy emphasis on the running game with multiple capable backs. That's his identity, that's what he believes in, and that's what he's going to continue building toward. The question becomes, where does a high-priced, elite wide receiver fit into that equation? especially one who's clearly not happy with his role and his targets. And when I say high-priced, I'm talking about a contract extension that kicks in for 2026, a 4-year deal worth $110 million. That's a massive commitment, the kind of money that ties up significant cap space and limits your flexibility in other areas. But here's the thing that front offices always consider. What if there was a way to free up that money while also addressing the underlying tension? Let me break down the numbers for you, because this is where it gets fascinating from a roster construction standpoint. If the Bears were to trade this player this offseason, they would save $5 million against the cuff the next TFR years. Yes, they'd take dead cap hits off 24. $5 million against the cap in each of the next 4 years. Yes, they'd take dead cap hits of 24. $5 million against the cap in the next TFR years. Yes, they'd take dead cap hits of $4 million in each of the next 3 seasons. But the net savings would be substantial. We're talking about enough financial flexibility to go out and sign an elite pass rusher, or finally address the left tackle position with a premium player, or bolster multiple positions across the roster. That's the kind of money that can transform a team. And here's where the speculation really takes off, because when you look at the current roster composition and the direction Johnson wants to take this offense, you can make a legitimate argument that this move might actually make sense for both parties. Rome Odunze, despite missing that Packers game, has shown flashes in his second year that suggest he could develop into a true WR1. He's got the size, the route-running ability, and the hands to be a number 1 receiver in this league. If the coaching staff believes in his trajectory, and if they're committed to this run-heavy, tight-end-focused offensive philosophy, then suddenly the idea of moving on from an expensive, frustrated veteran receiver doesn't seem so crazy. ESPN's Bill Barnwell actually predicted the possibility of this exact scenario ahead of the November trade deadline, noting that Johnson's offensive system and the player's skill set might not be the perfect marriage that everyone hoped it would be when the coach was hired. The Bears have the pieces to make Johnson's system work without relying heavily on a traditional WR1. They can invest in the offensive line, upgrade the running back room at reasonable cost, and continue developing Odunze as the primary receiving threat. It's a different vision than what we might have imagined a year ago, but it's a coherent one that fits the head coach's philosophy. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, and I'm not saying it's necessarily the right move. What I am saying is that when you look at all the factors, the on-field tension, the production decline, the philosophical mismatch, the financial implications, and the alternative options available, this becomes a scenario that the front office has to seriously consider. In today's NFL, you can't let emotions or past investments cloud your judgment about what's best for the team moving forward. The reality is that both DJ Moore and Caleb Williams could potentially be on the move, though Williams seems far less likely given that he's the quarterback the franchise is building around. But Moore's situation is different. He's a veteran who wants the ball, who's used to being a focal point, and who's now in an offense that might not be designed to maximize his specific talents. That's not a criticism of him as a player. He's incredibly talented. But sometimes in the NFL, fit matters just as much as talent. For us as fans, this is one of those moments where we have to think critically about what we want this team to be. Do we want to hold on to familiar faces and hope things improve, or do we trust the coaching staff's vision and make the hard decisions necessary to fully commit to that vision? Do we prioritize skill position talent, or do we invest in the trenches and the running game? These are the questions that will define the next era of Bears football. The optimist in me wants to believe that there's a way to make this work, that Moore can find his role in Johnson's system, and that the frustration we saw against the Packers was just a momentary reaction to a tough loss. The realist in me looks at the trends, listens to the coach's comments, examines the financial structure, and sees a situation that might be heading toward a divorce. And you know what? If that happens, if the Bears do decide to move more this offseason, I'm going to trust that they have a plan to use those resources wisely and continue building a championship-caliber roster. So here's my analysis of where we stand. The Bears are at a crossroads with DJ Moore and possibly with how they construct this entire offense going forward. The tension is real, the production has declined, and the financial opportunity to reallocate resources is significant. Whether they pull the trigger on a trade or find a way to make this relationship work will tell us a lot about how committed they are to Ben Johnson's vision and how they prioritize different positions on the roster. Either way, this offseason is going to be absolutely critical for the future of this franchise. Now, I want to hear from you, Bears Nation, because this is a decision that affects all of us. Do you think the Bears should trade DJ Moore this offseason and use that cap space to upgrade other positions? Or do you believe they should keep him and find a way to better integrate him into Johnson's offense? And what about Caleb Williams? Do you think the relationship between him and Moore can be salvaged? Or is this tension too deep to overcome? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know how you're feeling about all of this. If you found this analysis valuable, if it gave you something to think about, or helped you understand the situation better, smash that like button. It helps the channel grow and ensures that more Bears fans get access to this kind of in-depth coverage. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Bears News Fan Report and hit that notification bell, because we're going to be all over this story as it develops. The off-season is going to be wild, and you're going to want to be here for every update, every rumor, and every breaking news story as it happens. Share this video with your fellow Bears fans. Get the conversation started, because this is the kind of topic that's going to dominate our discussions for the next few months. And follow me on social media for even more content, quick updates, and direct interaction with the community. Thank you so much for watching, for your passion, for your dedication to this team. Let's keep building toward that championship together. Bear down, and I'll see you in the next one.